I was in Vegas during the Las Vegas Knights opening season.
Yeah.
When they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, I was there during the Stanley Cup Finals. Knights flags everywhere. I don't follow hockey. I couldn't tell you if the Knights are good again or what their attendance has been like.
No, they were good last year. I think
Okay.
they were in the playoffs.
I would imagine their attendance was good.
Yeah, it was.
One key for
Cobble was there. Remember?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. They're gonna have they're going to be people there, right? Vegas is a destination. The question is, will you get all Raider fans, or will you get like some people traveling in, and will it not be a great home field? If they're winning games, they're going to get, especially if they're winning games, they're going to get a ton of locals early. Like if they start hot, and Monday night helped that. It just makes it a hotter ticket for people who live in the area who maybe weren't a Raider fan before. Or they're kind of a Raider fan. You make yourself cool. You make yourself in demand. You do help potentially build a real home field advantage there. It looked awesome. It looked awesome on Monday night.
Yeah, it looked sweet. It looked really cool. I mean, the one knock, and I understand, like you don't even know, and it wouldn't have happened at the Coliseum. Not that the Coliseum's long gone and it should be. Derek did have to quiet the crowd several times when they were on offense in big spots in the second half.
Because when I tweeted that video in the preseason, people told me I was just doing like a
no, it was happening. It was happening nonstop in the second half.
Even because when I did it in the preseason, everyone was like, "Why? What's with your agenda?" And I was like,
no,
I'm just
no. There's no agenda.
Peterman's got to quiet people down in the red zone.
Okay. It's pretty clear why it happens. If you or me were just John Middlecoff, Guy Haberman, we lived in Henderson, Nevada, and we were had a young family, we had buddies, and we were insurance people or whatever, and we were diehard NFL people, and we're like, we got fucking season tickets. We've lived in Vegas our whole life. We've never gone to, maybe we've been to an NFL game or whatever, but it was always kind of neutral. We're not necessarily Raider fans, but now we're Raider fans because they represent Vegas and we're Vegas people. Like Vegas people live there, right? It's not just the casinos. And you're just going nuts. I don't even blame the people for screaming. Like you're just kind of living in the moment. It's a sweet event. I can imagine there were a lot of people, like Oakland or LA people that traveled there, just people from Vegas that wore black shirts, that were taking it all in. That were like, this is the NFL. This is badass. And the game, because the game was sweet. You got fucking Lamar Jackson running around like it's, Nebraska 1996. I mean, you're like, this is sweet. You got Waller doing it. If you were in attendance as just a neutral NFL fan, but you adopt the Raiders as any human would if they lived in a city that just gets a pro team, I think you wouldn't be like thinking like, I got to be quiet right now because they're on offense. I'd be like, fuck yeah. I think
this is what I came for.
I think that's what was happening.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like, I mean, there's no, listen, they made the best financial decision ever for the franchise because everyone is running from that area in Oakland, right? Joe couldn't have got out of there fast enough. Mark Davis wanted out, and the A's are soon to probably be in Vegas as well. So, and it never would have looked like that there. If that thing cost $2 billion in Vegas, what would that same exact place? If somehow the Raiders got to own that whole place and build that there, what's it, $5 billion in California?
I mean, Stan. Well, I guess Stan's probably a bad example because Stan, they had
he built other stuff, yeah,
and also they had rain. Remember, like the construction got delayed because there was like a bunch of rain.
Yeah, it's true.
But
I think he was 6.
6, yeah, it kept going up. But just the whole thing. Now I'm partial to a grass field. They got a grass field in there. That's the other cool thing. For being a dome, I love a grass field. But
Mark made promises, ingress, egress, he couldn't live up to just because that's where, the tailgating doesn't really exist. But I don't blame, it's out of his control.
Here's what we know.
He was big on the grass field, and I give him credit on doing the grass field.
Because they roll that, UNLV rolls in a turf field. They roll that Raiders field out.
I would rather play on the grass.
Yeah, but you got to pay to maintain. The grass can't have a game on it like on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Good point. Yeah.
So
they clearly didn't get the Jeds Levi's guy. Remember that disaster early on?
Do I remember that disaster? Yeah, I actually give Jed credit for not pivoting to turf artificial.
Yeah, he could have pretty quickly.
But look, one thing you can't deny: Vegas knows how to put on a show, and what you want, unlike USC that had like all the lights and the smoke. Here we go, USC Stanford, and then everyone's gone by halftime. You're not coming back for the show again. The show's sweet if you get the show, you get the lights, you get the flash, the Vegas Knights opening thing, and then the game delivers, and you're like this. I The one thing that makes me feel more like a fan than anything else, and you and I have been to a bunch of games where we just wear a pass, you go sit in the booth, you get some free food, you get a parking pass, and you can get detached from what a fan experience is, where parking costs $25 and you got to go buy beers and there's a line for $50. My dad and my sister just went to Dodger Stadium. I think parking was $30, they said.
I heard Giants was like 80.
Yeah. But you can get detached. The thing, and so you and I have both over the years made a conscious effort to know we're not going to sit in the press box. We're going to go sit in the stands. We're just going to go as fans and just walk around the stadium. The one thing that makes me feel more like a fan than anything else is starting lineups. If I'm going to a game, I've got to be there. I've got to be there. Basketball starting lineups, baseball starting lineups. Historically, football starting lineups are not the same as basketball or baseball starting lineups. But the one thing that makes me feel most like a fan is starting lineups. I just love it. I love it. Maybe it goes back to the Bulls. I don't know. But I love starting lineups. And that thing, they got Bruce Buffer, and they got Steve Aoki. And the place was just, they got the flame, which is the biggest flame you've ever seen in your life. And it was sick. It was just a sweet show.
Yeah, you said at the beginning of the podcast, right? In 2 weeks, they're playing the Dolphins in Vegas. Like that's their next home game.
Yeah.
That game, if you were going to start, I would say they get a free pass last year for the fans, not from the way the team got evaluated, but from the fans like going. Everyone forgot about your team sucking. That game was so much fun yesterday. I bet that Miami game is pretty sweet, right? Just the buzz in town, people going to work, people texting their friends. Everyone that went to that game who lives in Vegas couldn't stop talking about it today, right? If you've lived in Vegas, especially a long time, as people that grew up, very close to Sacramento, yet, just because obviously you just naturally, if you grew up in Davis, the teams were not the Warriors, it was the Kings, but it was also the Giants and the Niners. So everyone was the Giants and Niners, or maybe the A's, but you knew what the big boys looked like. But you also had this small town, like the Kings were treated like all them combined. It was that franchise was a really big deal. And in towns that have not had it, when you have a remarkable moment, it galvanizes the whole place. That's why it's such a high level in like San Francisco when the Niners are good, because they have like the entire Northern California. I can't, the Bears in Chicago, or the Eagles with, in Philly, or the Giants in New York. It's the small town Tuscaloosa times 50, right? Just because of the size of the people. But that Vegas, like that was a powerful moment. That's the way to start.
Yeah.
You need a little luck from the football gods, and kind of got it.
Yeah.
They got lucky. They easily could have shit the bed on that one.
Everybody who wins a bunch of football games has some wins where they should have.
But that was as ape shit crazy as I've ever seen with the Raiders.
You could argue that they got unlucky on the interception on the end zone and the Lamar fumble. They got
I know. I'm just saying the whole way it played out. That was insanity.
But that's part of what jumpstarts the whole thing and has everybody talking about it.
Is there anything crazier in football than a huge score that potentially is going to end the game? They review it, turns out his knee's down. Then you're like, oh my God, if something goes wrong here, we could have just won. Then all of a sudden it does go wrong, like fumble snap. Then all of a sudden you're at the floor.
Did that cross your mind? Something could go wrong here? Because it didn't cross my mind. I'm like, nothing's going to go wrong here. They're on the half-yard line.
I did just because I didn't think an interception would happen. I just thought it could get a little weird.
Once you get the false start on the half-yard line,
then you had to be thinking something could go weird, right?
Yeah, then it got weird.
I didn't expect a pick, but the pick when it hits
it's better than a regular pick too, because the ball's just.
But did they on the Manning? I guess the Manning broadcast just showed the ABC broadcast when Gruden hit the ground. All of his papers went everywhere, and he just like fell to the ground. That was an incredible camera shot of just his papers. He had like 4 papers over here. He had another paper here, and a pen was over here, and his body was like curved, just laying there. It was incredible.
Oh, it was so good. Great TV. They're going to be entertaining. Like, I do think they're good. This is where I think they might just be good enough on defense to be pretty entertaining. They got
that division's got a lot of talent. Like, I don't think it's as good as the NFC West, but it's going to be hard. Like, it's just,
but like, is Justin Herbert on the road there with fans going to be the same as Justin Herbert was in? I still like him a lot. Don't get me wrong.
I'd say one thing the Raiders have going for them a little bit is the big bad wolf in the AFC by a mile And part of it is when you're in a division, you become numb to it a little bit. You're like, oh yeah, the Niners did with Seattle. Like Seattle's really good, but you're just like, we're playing Seattle. It's part of the deal. They just play the Chiefs. Like how many times has Derek played the Chiefs now? He's been in the league, 8 years, 16 times.
Yeah.
Maybe he missed one game for injury, but like they play, and he's had a lot of success. He's beat them, at several iterations of their. I do think that's a benefit is like they don't look at the Chiefs. Obviously, it's a big deal to beat them, and they did last year. But I'm just saying, like, they just go into it like they're used to playing that team. Like when Cleveland did, it kind of felt like this is like the kind of Stefanski's early Super Bowl. It felt like that watching them. Like when you're the Raiders, I don't think that you just look at it differently when they're.
Yeah, the Raiders have played the Chiefs as a heavy underdog. They've played the Chiefs as like a team that people are expecting something out of, and let's see what they do against the Chiefs. Right? They've played them in a number of different scenarios that I think has them pretty ready. I think Derek's just really ready to take the next step. The question is White Khalil Mack and that defense like
White chocolate?
White chocolate.
That was a good jersey. I give him credit on that one. He looked good. I mean, he looked
Jason
good.
Williams, he did. He looked great.
All right. I talked to someone, pretty prominent human last night, and his theory why Gruden benched or inactivated or had Cleveland Farrell was a little bit like he did with Reggie McKenzie's players. It was to show Mark Davis like this guy's drafting this guy like to make Mike Mayock look bad. I was like, that's not a terrible theory, just because it's kind of been out there. Those two guys have been at odds, but like maybe
John's
just not as
good. What does he have to prove to anybody?
But John's weird with that stuff. He did it with Reggie and those guys. I thought it was possible.
Cleveland ended up on the injury. Cleveland has a back injury all of a sudden now.
Oh, so maybe it's not. So it wasn't a true healthy scratch.
Well, I mean, they could be making who knows? Once you start doing conspiracy theories, if you're willing to do conspiracy theory on the healthy scratch, then you can do a conspiracy theory on why did he finally suddenly pop up.
But like Mike, a couple weeks ago said like, this is what I signed up for. If we don't win fast, I'll get fired. So he was already kind of talking like that.
Yeah.
Gruden's weird, with that type of stuff.
Yeah.